Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of the Seekers Forum. I hope you're having a great weekend. And let's say hi to Jay Coakley. Jay, how are you?
Doing great. Good to see you, Mark.
Nice to see you too. Welcome. So, this month we're looking at confidence, and in particular, the impact of confidence on resilience, which is the ability not only to bounce back after adversity, but in fact to bounce forward, to thrive and prosper and continue evolving in the midst of inevitable challenges. Confidence is closely connected to joie de vivre, and it's integral to enthusiasm and wherewithal, that sense of being equal to the tasks of living and the challenges that come our way. Now, authentic confidence has nothing to do with arrogance or superiority or grandiosity or bravado or any of the other ego impersonations of what it means to be strong and self assured. Instead, genuine confidence is humble, it's willing to admit its own mistakes, and it's focused primarily on connection to our source, the reservoir of power, strength, and personal presence. Now, presence is the operative word here because confidence rises out of a person's being and isn't conditional or dependent on doing one particular thing or another. Should one desire to do things, that's perfectly fine. But when the time comes that she can no longer do what she might like to do, her confidence needn't falter because at the end of the day, confidence is not strictly personal. Confidence is not strictly personal. So, what do I mean by saying that confidence isn't personal? Simply this: that when you draw your confidence from the shallow pool of the ego's self belief, which is always fluctuating, conditional, biased, your confidence is bound to be shaky, ephemeral, and dependent on particular outside factors over which you have little to no control. On the other hand, when you derive your confidence from your deeper being, it becomes fathomless. It's fed by the power of the divine, by the transpersonal dimension of who you are. Confidence of that kind is always humble because it's connected to a power greater than you are. And thus it has nothing to defend. It speaks the truth, and when it's wrong, openly admits to its errors. As Ralph Waldo Emerson put it, a great man is always willing to be little. A great man is always willing to be little. People who are secure in themselves have no need to lord their power over other people or to demand to be told that they're right when they aren't. It's only fake confidence that needs to feel dominant, preen, show off its strength. And you see this very often among malignant narcissists who appear outwardly to be pictures of swagger and self assurance, but collapse at the first appearance of confrontation or criticism. When you question a narcissist's invincibility or you dare to disagree with them, you're likely to suffer the wraths of hell, their ego lashing out to protect its own existence. Confidence comes from the Latin meaning with faith, as I've mentioned before. And this faith is what we're going to be focusing on in this month's program. This faith rests not in religion or on powers outside of ourselves, but rather on cultivating what social psychologists call an internal locus of control. Now, a researcher named Albert Bandura introduced this term back in the 1970s. He was studying social cognition when Bandura noticed something quite obvious that had somehow escaped other researchers' attention. He isolated a mechanism that plays a major role in human development, but had been largely overlooked somehow, namely, the impact of an individual's belief in her own ability to influence the events of her life, a belief that varies dramatically from person to person. Bandura discovered that people with a, quote, internal locus of control tend to believe that what happens to them is greatly influenced by their own abilities, actions, and mistakes. Whereas those with an external locus of control typically imagine that outside forces, random chance, environmental factors, and the actions of other people are primarily responsible for the events that occur in their lives. The advantage of maintaining an internal locus of control can't be overstated. It's the difference between viewing yourself as an active creator of your experience or as a hapless plaything of circumstance. It's the distinction between being aligned with the core of your own character and behaving like a Raggedy Ann doll that's just being tossed hither and yon by outrageous fortune. When you're linked to your internal locus of control, your self-esteem, the ability to be okay inside your own skin, increases. And that in turn leads to feeling more capable of manifesting your own intentions in the world. Bandura dubbed this quality of manifestation, of feeling able to bring what's inside of us outside, as self-efficacy, which is different than self-esteem. Self-esteem is about being comfortable inside our own skin. Self-efficacy comes from a belief in our own ability to manifest in the world. And it's self-efficacy in connection to self-esteem that form authentic confidence. Now, confidence of this kind also breeds resilience by teaching us the limitations of our own power, which sounds like a paradox, but isn't. Also, the value of making mistakes and the necessity of patience when confronting hardship. All of these things feed into confidence and resilience. This reminds me of a line from a poem by William Butler Yeats. Quote, "They also serve who only stand and wait." Isn't that good? They also serve who only stand and wait. And what that means is that part of being strong and confident, self-reliant, equanimous, is knowing when to slow down, stop pushing, and surrender to life's instructions. Confidence, patience, and resilience all go hand in hand because growth in real life is gradual. As we all know, it's incremental. It's marked by passages of near invisible progress that are punctuated by sudden leaps forward. It's so easy in life to feel like nothing is happening when in fact we're germinating under the skin. But without learning to stand and wait when necessary, we often lack the stamina that we need to build confidence. The truth is that confidence is never increased by focusing on the things we don't have or clinging to losses from the past. It's only by grounding ourselves in what is that we increase self-efficacy and resilience. And it's your internal locus of control that enables you to do that, to face setbacks with equanimity instead of self-pity. As Bandura noted, this increases the ability to recover from failure, which of course is what resilience is all about. So when success comes your way, you're more than happy to acknowledge it. But when hardships arise, as they inevitably do, you're better able to view them as opportunities for self-compassion and for growth and for awakening. Now, confidence has a magnetic pull, and I'm sure most of you have noticed that. When you feel it in yourself or others, the universe appears to respond. Emerson put it this way, quote, "If the single man plants himself indomitably on his instincts and there abides, the huge world will come around to him," unquote. If the single person plants herself indomitably on her instincts and there abides, the huge world will come around to her. And many of us have had that experience of seeing how confidence seems to magnetize opportunities, relationships, insights, innovation. There was a Scottish mountaineer named W.H. Murray who described it this way. He said, quote, "Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. But the moment one definitely commits oneself, the providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no one would have dreamed could have come his way." That's what happens when we are committed, when we stop hesitating, when we stop drawing back, which only leads to ineffectiveness. So what are the elements of confidence? What prevents us from feeling it more of the time? You can bundle these obstacles under a general aegis of rumination. Rumination is perhaps the greatest obstacle to confidence. Rumination includes second guessing ourselves, ambivalence, lack of clarity, self judgment, comparing ourselves to others, dwelling on the past, predicting the future. All of these are drains to confidence. And confidence is also drained by obsessively trying to figure things out rationally. Trying to determine exactly why this or that happened, which, as most of us know, tends to be a fool's errand. Seeking absolute answers to complex questions of causation becomes a source of ongoing stress. While it's valuable to understand our motives, of course, to have a sense of how and why things have happened, understanding our own character, ultimate causes can really never be determined. There are just too many variables in life. Our certainties are hypotheses at best. So if we spend our lives in abstract pursuit of ultimate answers or ultimate solutions, or staring in the rearview mirror to figure out how we got to where we are, we can't be aware of the road that's in front of us or what's happening in the present moment. Instead, we're being pulled into overthinking, into compulsive loops of circular cogitation that very often take us nowhere. And what that does is robs us of resilience. It robs us of power. And the reason that happens is that WHY, does not exist in nature. Why is an exclusively human creation that imagines a logical universe where 1 + 1 = 2 and final outcomes can be predicted. But of course, that's not how things work in the real world. There are no conclusive explanations for why things happen. Reality is shaped and formulated by a mysterious source and by numerous mysterious forces that don't operate according to logic or reason or human predictability. And knowing this, recognizing that, actually helps to calm the mind and helps you to feel more comfortable inside your own skin. The ancient Stoics used the image of an archer to demonstrate that outcomes can't be predicted. As Cicero famously observed, the archer does everything she can to shoot accurately. She strings her bow well, she chooses her arrows with care, she studies the wind and the weather, but even so she may miss the bullseye, and that's because no sooner has the arrow left her fingers than it falls outside the archer's control. It's subject to forces outside her wheelhouse, beyond her pay grade, you could say. So, deciding upon a course of action, the wise Stoic is instructed to carry out the action to the best of her ability, knowing that she can't control the outcome. The outcome is subject to externals outside her control. So she bases the success of her actions, as well as her own self-worth, on her inner state, not on what happens externally. Another great Stoic, Seneca, put it this way, quote, "The wise person considers intention rather than outcome in every situation. The beginnings are in our power, the results are judged by fortune, to which I grant no jurisdiction over myself. Death at the hands of a robber is not a condemnation." And the key sentence in here is that the beginnings are in our power, the preparation for action is in our power, but the results are judged by fortune, to which I grant no jurisdiction over myself. Do you see what he's saying? He's saying that fortune cannot dictate my own empowerment, my own confidence, my own connection to this internal locus of control. So the archer in this figure, like every one of us, must not sacrifice her inner confidence, her connection to her own core. Accepting limitations saves energy, and surrendering to the unknown actually teaches us not to be victims, which is another paradox, but true. So behavioral studies show that when we focus on how rather than why, we tend to have better success and more confidence. Bandura and his colleagues call this an implementation orientation. And what that means is having a sense of how we intend to move forward, the necessary steps in the process, which feed our confidence and our self-esteem. Having an implementation orientation, which is a mouthful, is vastly superior to a mere goal orientation, which is often vague and therefore remains unachievable. Oh, I want to write a book, or I want to go to China, or I want to run an organization, without taking the steps to figure out how that can happen. There was an interesting study of recovering addicts that was done at a rehab clinic to test the importance of this implementation orientation. So what happened is that the subjects were divided into two groups. The first group was asked to create a personal CV for employers by the end of the day. Just create a CV for employers by the end of the day. The second group was instructed to do the same thing, but also include a plan of implementation. How they were going to do it. And the success rates between these two groups was startling. In the first group that was simply asked to have a goal orientation to create this CV, not a single subject in that group managed to complete the task by the end of the day, whereas 80% of the second group delivered their CVs on time. 80% of the group who had an implementation orientation delivered their curriculum vitae by the end of the day. So answering the question how seems to provide traction and wherewithal for succeeding in our intentions. The more successful group didn't sit around talking about what they could do or questioning the assignment or feeling unequal to the task. Instead, they focused on what they would do step by step, and this enabled them to get the job done. So ask yourself, do you have an implementation orientation to the challenges in your life? Or do you spend too much time questioning your choices, paralyzing your will through indecision, wondering why things don't happen as you would like them to? Is your locus of control internal or external? Are you a friend to yourself, or are you an enemy to yourself? It's a very important question to ask. Do you trust yourself, or are you forever on trial in the great tribunal of your own mind? These are very important lines of inquiry when we are looking at confidence and moving away from rumination toward resilience and a life of self-belief. So that's what I wanted to say to you today about confidence. And now we will move into the writing. Jay, if you could just pull up the prompt, here we go. I'd like you to take 20 minutes now to write about whether you tend to second guess yourself and overthink your personal choices. If so, when and why? And if not, why not? Please be as specific as you can be. We'll take 20 minutes to do that. 10 minutes in, Jay will open up the breakout rooms if you would like to join a group. Otherwise, just keep on writing. 20 minutes.